All right, so we have started recording the session, and just a couple of quick administrative things that I want to cover. Just a couple of questions that came up over the course of the week, just to clarify for everybody so that, everyone understands, what I'm expecting and stuff like that. So first of all, you do not have to turn in practice problems. The only problems that I want to see are the homework problems, okay? Secondly, make sure you have read the syllabus and you understand what problems are due. There were a couple of issues with people only turning in chapter 1. So, I want to make sure that you're very thorough, and accounting is a subject of detail and thoroughness, okay? I want to make sure that you're very thorough and that you understand what problems are due every single week, okay? So it's just the homework problems. You do not have to turn in the practice problems, but I will tell you that those people who have done the practice problems and actually worked them out themselves and then check their answers after the fact, because as you can see, practice problems are readily available here for you to download. Okay, those people that work the practice problems and do what they're supposed to do, I don't think there's a single one of them that has gotten anything lower than an A- in my class. And it's simply because it gives you more practice. You're doing the problems not just once, you're doing them twice or sometimes 3 times, okay? So it's extremely helpful, and I can't emphasize that enough. So just make sure that you understand that you're only responsible for turning in the homework problems. Secondly, make sure that you are submitting just one Excel sheet, okay? No matter how many times I mention this, it seems like I still get, people submitting a Word document and an Excel document, and or an Excel sheet that has 5 different sheets filled out, one for each problem. And that's not what I'm looking for. So I'm going to show you one more time. I want to make sure that we're on the same page because it makes a huge difference in ease of grading, quite frankly. So this is one sheet right here. If you're adding sheets like this and you've got one problem per sheet, that's not what I want. I just want you to do all of your problems straight down on one sheet. And if you have a written problem like you did in this first chapter, go ahead and just, type in what your problem is. So, this is an example. I don't really care about format, on those types of problems. So just, don't write a book across the screen if you have, 1A, 1B, maybe you can merge the cells and wrap text, and then when you do that, I'm just going to get this, you see how it just kind of wraps, okay? And I know some of you know how Excel works, and then, you can expand it to where it'll show everything, okay? So just little things like that, it just makes it easier to grade, and it's not that I'm going to take off a bunch of points if you don't do it like that, but I just, for ease of grading, if you could, that would be fantastic. I will tell you that if you do it on multiple sheets, you need to just take it, copy and paste it into one sheet. Okay, I know that several people had asked that, and you can just take and literally copy and paste something, right, just highlight the cells, Control C, bring it over, Control V. And I said V is in Victor. So it's just that easy. So just make sure that, you're doing it all in the same flow. Okay? That's all I ask. The other question. No. Go ahead. Somebody have a question? Okay. All right. So, one other thing that I can tell when this happens, please watch the pre-recorded webinars. Okay. I know that they're pre-recorded from another semester, but it covers this material and it covers how to do the problem. So please, before you ask questions or things like that, please watch those pre-recorded webinars because they are extremely valuable and they will, really help you in terms of learning how to do the problems. And the nice thing about it too is if you haven't picked up on this, you can actually pause them and rewind them, and freeze my screen so that you can kind of follow along and do the problems as we go as well. So I highly, highly recommend that you watch those pre-recorded webinars. They just are so valuable, and everybody that has watched them has said, just how valuable they are, and that, they really help them figure the problems out. So I don't mind answering questions, but I can just tell you that I've pretty much answered all the questions in that webinar. So, rather than having to wait on me, it's all right there for you to just, download and watch, at any time that you can, because I know we're all on different time schedules as well. And I've got a lot of people this semester in different time zones. So that brings up another point. If you wait until Thursday night at 10 o'clock to ask me a question, you're likely not going to get the answer until the next morning. Okay? So that's probably not a good time to be asking questions for homework. Okay? I do try to cut it off at some point and, stop answering questions. I do have my mail coming through my phone and stuff like that, but, it would be really nice if everybody could make sure that they get their homework done and prepared and stuff prior to waiting till the very last second. I know a few people got caught this time, not realizing how long these problems were going to take. And so planning ahead is very important, guys, because I will tell you, these accounting problems are not short by any means, as you found out in the first two chapters. Okay, so you need to really make sure that you're working ahead and you're doing as much as you can ahead of time. Okay? Anybody have any questions so far? Nope? Okay. All right. So let's talk about Module 2. So we've got, your PowerPoint, your practice problems, your homework solutions will be available after September 9th, your quiz, your study guide, and your webinar, the pre-recorded webinar. Okay? So hopefully you watch those. And so these Q&A sessions are typically going to be simply to answer your questions. So you need to come prepared to ask questions. I know I've got a couple here from Ernie, who is wanting to know, is expense recognition matching for only cash services? So Ernie, can you tell me what problem that's referring to? Are you on?
Yes, I'm here. Actually, that wasn't referring to any particular problem. Just as I was reading through there, the thing that caught my eye was there's so many different electronic forms of payment. I mean, does that duplicate out for like a cash card, or somebody's using a credit card? If somebody's running a something like a a lawn mowing business and they will zing a person's credit card across the top of the cell phone,
Mm-hmm.
and they will use credit cards versus cash.
Mm-hmm.
How would that work if it's not cash? Is it still the same entry?
Yeah, it's still the same. It A credit card transaction is treated like like a cash transaction. Sometimes you will have companies that actually charge fees that are associated with that credit card because, as you know, the credit card companies charge the business, like the lawn mowing business, a fee every time, somebody uses a credit card. And more, I've been seeing businesses that actually charge that through to the customer as well. So if you pay by credit card, they'll charge you it can be up to 4% a transaction. I have seen that with a couple of the clients that I'm working with. They're getting hit with 4%, which when you're talking about thousands of dollars, that's a pretty good chunk of money. So they are now sometimes passing those fees through, so it'll become a line item on the or the sales order or the invoice, and they will charge it through and have it hit a different credit card fee account, so that they can, then reconcile that account to all of their fees that they get charged by the credit card company. But to answer your question, Ernie, yes, that is going to be treated like a cash transaction. The difference that you're thinking of is when somebody puts the transaction on account. So anytime you see the book saying something about something being on account, that means that that's a receivable. So for instance, let me give you a for instance. Let's say that lawn mowing business just goes around and they've got a contract with their customers to just go ahead and mow their lawn weekly, and then they'll send them a monthly bill. Well, the fact that they're providing that service up front, or they could be providing it in arrears too, meaning they could charge the customer, send them an invoice for the month of May prior to May 1st, and if the customer doesn't pay, they don't get their lawn mowed in May. So, those types of transactions are where you see the transaction. So the revenue will be hit, or the sales, whichever they call it, and don't get hung up on the lingo in accounting. I've said that a couple of times too and I'm going to mute you because there's a lot of background noise. So I've said this a couple of times too, in various settings. You will find that the accounts receivable and the revenue, so the revenue or sales, whichever you're referring to it as, offset each other. Okay, accounts receivable is only going to be charged in the case where the company is charging the customer and basically putting it on account. So meaning the customer is not paying for that product or service up front. They're going to pay it at a later date. Like, this is how you come up with like net 30 transactions. So, basically your utility bills are a good example of that. That's, net 10, net 15, net 30, whatever the case may be. You're basically, as the customer, being allowed to use a product or service and being charged on account. So that's a little different. So that's where the journal entry becomes revenue and accounts receivable. In the case of cash, it's going to be revenue and cash. Does that make sense, Ernie? Okay. Did that answer your question?
Yes, I apologize. I'm just having a technical issue with the computer.
Oh, no problem. Okay. All right. So, okay, good question though. Excellent question. And then in the general journal, the column for reference. So in a journal entry, a typical journal entry that you would do, you're going to have like the account, Um, you're going to have the debit and the credit, and then you might have a column called memo or reference. And this is just to put a memo in there for what you're making that journal entry for. So in accounting, you want to be able to tell what each line item is for, basically. So, let's say I make a journal entry for a company. Let me think here. Let's say I'm doing some sort of an accrual, okay? And an accrual is basically, I know that I'm going to recognize this revenue or this expense, or that it's coming through. And like, for instance, let's say I didn't get the water bill this month, but I know that it's going to be $50, okay? So I know that I used $50 worth of water in the month, so I want to recognize it in that month. So I'm going to make an accrual. Okay, so my journal entry to do that would be to, basically put an expense item in, right, and debit it to, water, utilities, whatever the account may be, and credit it to accounts payable, right, because I haven't gotten the bill yet. So I can't pay it. I can't pay it out of cash yet, right? So in that case, you would put a memo in that field that says, maybe water bill for September 2016. So that's what that reference is. Does that make sense?
Yes, ma'am, it does. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Okay. So what other questions do we have? Don't be shy. You guys all out of questions for the week? How's everybody feeling about the webinars and stuff? Have you been using them, and do you feel pretty good about it? Oh, got a question. Okay, tell us about Contra. What do you want to know about Contra? And where are you?
Well, I'm reading. I am saying that there's a question about that, and I have read through the book. It just seems like I'm just a little concerned that the book might be a little bit abbreviated with what it's saying. I was just wondering if there is anything else that you could possibly add.
So a Contra account is just basically an offset account. So that's it. Don't get hung up on the terminology. It's really not as complicated as what maybe the book is turning it into. Where did you see it, Ernie? Do you remember?
It was not on. It was under depreciation on page. Wow, I didn't. Parts of the book I actually retyped, so I'm looking actually at a Microsoft Word document.
Okay.
Let's see if I can find it real quick.
It's page 123.
Thank you.
Welcome.
That was quick.
I just have it open to that page.
Okay, so where are we at here? That's 122. Okay, so Contra accounts. Okay. Okay, so they are exactly what the by definition what they say. They're just used to record reductions in or offset credit balance, and appears in the balance sheet as a deduction against a related account balance. So a Contra account is like accumulated depreciation. Basically, it's hitting the balance sheet to reduce the related assets. So in other words, like depreciation is basically saying, let's say you own a company vehicle, okay? You own a company vehicle and you're making, you've purchased that company vehicle for $5,000. And we know that that vehicle is going to have an asset life of 5 years, meaning it's only going to be useful to you for 5 years. And then after that, it will no longer probably be in service. Okay, so it's one of those predictions in accounting that you kind of have to make where you say the asset's going to be useful over the course of, X years. So you're going to depreciate it, okay, because the value of that asset is going to depreciate or be reduced, okay? So as you go along, you realize that that vehicle, in year one, it might be worth $5,000, but in year two, it's only going to be worth $4,000. In year three, $3,000. So you see how the value is going down. So in order to book that and show that on your balance sheet, because your balance sheet is showing the value of your assets, so you have to reduce that value as the value is, reducing across time. So your contra account is accumulated depreciation. So accumulated depreciation is exactly what it says. It's accumulated, loss in value. Does that make sense?
It does, yes.
Okay. So that's what the
It
contra
does.
that's what the contra account means. It's basically recording that reduction. Okay. So you'll have your value, the value of your assets sitting there on your balance sheet, and you're basically going to do a journal entry showing your depreciation that's going to book a reduction to that value in your asset, and it's going to put it to accumulated depreciation. Okay?
Thank you.
Okay. No problem. Good questions. Excellent questions. Anybody else? Okay. If nobody has any other questions, then, we'll go ahead and end the webinar. And, just make sure that you're watching the pre-recorded one. It does go through everything. So, just let me know if anything comes up that you don't understand. And again, too, guys, if there's one thing that I do want you doing is when you get the answers to your homework, when they're available the next day, I want you to go through your homework and compare the answers to what you did, okay? I will tell you, if you do that, it will help you tremendously on your exams. You're going to understand what you did wrong and how to do it correctly, okay? So just do that as a good study habit in terms of getting ready for your exams, because before you know it, week 4 is going to be here and that midterm is going to be due, okay? So just please, please, please make sure you're doing this all along. Take it might take you 30 minutes to go through it and figure out what you did wrong, but it's 30 minutes well worth, okay? So just keep doing that and keep working. Everybody is doing a tremendous job, and, just really work hard, and I guarantee you, if you do that and if you follow the study tips and things that I'm giving you, you will definitely make at least an A or a B in the class. Okay? All right. Well, I hope you guys have a great week, and again, don't hesitate to reach out. I'm here. Happy to answer questions. So please, please, please don't hesitate to reach out, okay? All right, guys. Thank you. Have a great evening.
Thank you. Have a good evening.
Thank you.